Hello and welcome to the Dream Team Professor podcast. My name is Scott, and in this episode, we're looking at the top players to target in game week 1 Sun Dream Team. We've got 2 days left until the start of the season. It's time to get stuck into some final planning. This is the fixture ticker from ffstuff.co.uk. You're probably very familiar with it by now. I do go into the fixtures in a lot more detail in a separate episode, so I'll link that if you want to have a deep dive into them. But I'll quickly go over the fixtures for the next few game weeks for you to have a look at. So game week 1 to game week 3, all of the teams that play later in Europe will just have 3 fixtures, 3 Premier League fixtures. The teams that don't have European football later in the season, they will play 4 times in the first 3 game weeks, and that's because they have a double game week in game week 2, which is the Carabao Cup. The Carabao Cup draw will take place tonight, after the previous round of Carabao Cup matches happen. So just the non-European sides will be drawn into that one. There'll be a lot of rotation for those games, so it'll be hard to predict what the lineups will be, but it does mean that some of the teams that you wouldn't usually target so heavily during European football do come into it a little bit more. When we get to game week 3 is just Premier League. When we get to game week 4, that's when we get the start of the Champions League. So City, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Aston Villa will have a double game week in game week 4. But there'll also be the next round of Carabao Cup fixtures also put into game week 4. So the people that win in game week 2 will have their Carabao Cup match in game week 4. And then also the Europa League sides will also be drawn into the Carabao Cup at that stage. Game week 5, that is just Premier League. But then the Champions League sides will play their Carabao Cup match that they couldn't play the week before because they were playing Champions League. And you'll also have the start of the Europa League. So Manchester United will have a double game week and Tottenham will have a double game week. You'll be able to access this on ffstuff.co.uk. Really handy, free website. You just go down to their fixture grid and it will fill out as the draws are made. And in the game week 6, all of Europe goes back to how we normally have it, where they all play together. Game week 6 will have Champions League, Europa League, and then Chelsea will also play in the Europa Conference League if they win their qualifier that takes place in game week 2 and game week 3. Chelsea's qualifier does not count for Dream Team. So that's a quick look over the first 6 weeks for your planning. I'm then going to have a look at which teams I think would probably be the best to target. But bear with me, I'm ticking quite a lot of teams for this episode, so there'll be timestamps below, so you can literally click on whichever team you want to take a look at. If you haven't got much time and you just want to look at certain teams, you can click. There'll be timestamps below. So, as you can see, it's a lot of the teams. And that's because early on, with no Europe, there's a lot more teams in the mix. You've obviously got the best teams that are typically the European teams, but then you've got the teams that will have Carabao Cup. And we don't really know what the form is like early on. So I've ticked quite a few teams here. And it will gradually narrow down as we know which teams are in form, which teams are doing well, which teams have Europe, etc. So in this episode, I'll look over top players, budget picks, and then I'll touch on the captaincy as I go through the teams that I think have the best captaincy options. If there's any teams, players that I haven't mentioned that you like the look of and you want my opinion on, by all means, leave a comment below and I'll get back to you. So best fixtures from the European teams. So Liverpool, I think, have the best start in the Premier League. So they have Ipswich away, Brentford at home, and then they have Manchester United away. The fixture run is still quite nice after that as well. So Forest, obviously Champions League, we don't know who they'll have yet. Bournemouth at home and Wolves. So they do avoid a lot of the bigger sides other than Manchester United. Man City, pretty much all of their games are winnable. I've heard a lot of people are put off by that Chelsea away match in the first fixture. I still think they'll win it. But then it's good after that. Ipswich in game week 2. So if you're thinking of going without Haaland, are you going to just want him back in game week 2? You'll also probably start to see the likes of KDB, Foden come back into the mix. I think their fixture run is pretty decent. We're then going to go to Arsenal. 2 of the first 3, I think, are nice. Wolves at home and then Brighton at home. Arsenal's home form is usually pretty good. But Aston Villa in between those 2, don't really like that one. And then game week 4 onwards gets quite tough. So Tottenham away, Man City away. You'll have a Champions League match in between that. It does start to maybe look a bit dodgy there. Spurs, they've got 2 nice openers. So Leicester away, Everton at home. But then for them, it gets a bit tough. Newcastle away, Arsenal. Chelsea, horrible opener with Man City, but I guess if there was a time to play them, it would be get it out of the way early and at home. But then after that, Chelsea's fixtures do look nice, so I think they're going to be quite popular after game week 1. Aston Villa, I'm actually not keen on their first 2. So West Ham away, Arsenal at home, but then it gets nicer. Leicester away, Everton at home, and then we get the start of the Champions League. So your likes of Ollie Watkins will likely be coming into our team at that point after game week 3. United, they have a tough first 3 fixtures, I think, United. So they face Fulham at home in that, the start of the Premier League. But you'll actually get to see the Man United lineup and the Fulham lineup. Usually the deadline is going to be 90 minutes before the first kickoff. But for the first game week of the season, it is going to be the kickoff. So we'll see the Fulham team, we'll see the Man United team. So I think that's a positive. But then they have Brighton away, Liverpool at home, which isn't so great. Onto the teams that don't have Europe, but will have Carabao Cup. And again, like I said, after that Carabao Cup draw is done this evening, this should update on FF stuff and also in the Dream Team app. So Newcastle, I think out of the teams that don't have Europe, they have the best start, arguably the best start overall as well. So Southampton at home, I really think they'll do well there. Bournemouth away in the second game week, followed by a Carabao Cup match. They then have Tottenham at home, Wolves away, Fulham away, and then Man City in game week 6. So I think that's a nice run for Newcastle. Palace is okay. Brentford, West Ham, Carabao Cup, and then Chelsea. So a bit of a mixed bag for Crystal Palace. Forest looks nice on paper, but obviously they're a weaker side. You've got Fulham, which outside of that first match against Man United looks pretty decent for Fulham as well. They've got some exciting options, so we'll come on to those in a minute. Brighton, very tough. Some players that we probably would like to target, but it doesn't get good for them until sort of European football has started, by which point it's probably a bit too late. Everton, Man United, Arsenal in their first 3. That Everton match is away as well, but then followed by Ipswich, Forest and Chelsea. And then Everton, I'm going to include them in this, but it is a difficult 2 out of their first 3. Brighton, Tottenham and Bournemouth, and then they've got the Carabao Cup match in between. Like I said, if you want a deeper look at these fixtures, I've got a separate video I'll link in the description below. But let's get on to these top players to target. Please do leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I'm going to be doing these top players to target on a weekly basis throughout the season, but we also do things like live streams, deadline streams, recaps of the game week's top point scorers and stuff like that. So please do leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and keep up with it throughout the season. Right, let's start with Liverpool, who I think have the best fixtures. I've got the fixture ticker along the top. I've also got the last lineup, or the lineup from their last friendly, up on the screen as well. And won't necessarily mean it's their starting lineup, but a lot of the teams went quite strong for the last friendly. So it'll give us an idea of how we think they might line up for their first game of the season. Obviously, I'm going to start with Mohamed Salah at 7 million, 25% owned, which I think is pretty low for Salah. But they have priced him quite high, and Haaland, so it's given people a decision to make. 5th highest points last season, consistent scorer in the Dream Team app, or game, sorry. 2nd striker overall last season, 25 goals, 16 assists. I don't feel like I need to really big him up too much, but it feels like most people are going to make a decision to either go with Salah, to go with Haaland, or go with both, but then to the detriment of the rest of the team. One of the questions that we will come on to is, can you cover Salah with a Jota or Diaz? But I think that Salah is a viable captain for this first match against Ipswich away from home on the Saturday. It is the early kickoff, so if you're superstitious like that, not back in the early kickoff, that could be something that goes against you. But with Haaland playing Chelsea, Salah playing Ipswich, I do think that Ipswich is probably the better fixture out of the 2 big hitters. So I do like Salah as a captaincy option, and he's one that I'm considering as my captain. Can you cover him with a Jota or Diaz? Well, Jota is 4.5, and so is Diaz as well. So big saving if you did go for either or both to try and cover Salah. Jota had 15 goals, 8 assists, and it looks like he will be the starting striker Had a 5.6 average compared to a Salah's 7.5. Did get a goal and 3 assists in pre-season, so did quite well to start off with. And then Diaz as well, 4.5, 13 goals, 8 assists, starting on the left wing in pre-season. We're pretty sure that that is how Slot is going to line up to start off with. The downsides, Diaz had 2 goals in pre-season. The downsides of this, I think, is that you've got Gakpo and Darwin Núñez both on the bench, waiting in the wings to get their appearance. And you wouldn't be that surprised, I think, if either of them subbed on around the sort of 60th, 70th minute mark. So you're maybe not going to get the full minutes out of the two. Who knows? Under the new management, it might be different to how it was before, but that is something we saw quite a lot. Szoboszlai, McAllister, both at 4 million, I think it is. I'll double check that one actually. Yeah, both at 4 million. I think they're decent options in midfield. It looks like they're going to be the sort of 2 more attacking players. And then they did have Gravenberch start as the sort of holder, which I still think they're trying to look for a replacement for him. But I think either get forward quite well, and there's not much to separate them for points. I quite like McAllister as a player more, but it seems like Szoboszlai could be the better dream team option. Played more minutes in this previous match, had a bit more pre-season as well, scoring a goal. But McAllister's average was slightly higher, 4.8 versus Szoboszlai's 4.4. I've got the attacking returns on the screen. 7 goals, 6 assists for Szoboszlai, 7 goals, 7 assists for McAllister. So it is neck and neck, really. Take your pick out of those two if you want to go there. Another big question is, do we start with Trent? I'm initially not that keen, and it's not because he's obviously not a great player. I do think he is a great option. It's just that 5.5 price point at the back. It is a big investment early on in the season. 35 bonus points, 3 goals, 13 assists for the season. So does well for bonus, does well for goals and assists. And if you think that Liverpool are going to be better defensively under Slot, then I think he could be a really good option for clean sheets as well. 16 returns from 37 matches. There's nothing to really dislike about him other than the price, in my opinion. I just think that with Porro at 4 million, 5.8 average, and Vardiol at 4.5 with a 5.7 average, maybe you could get something close to it with the points for a little bit cheaper. But Trent is a very good option. It just comes down to whether you want to spend the money on him, and it is quite hard with that initial 50 million. Quansah is someone that I've seen people talk about. 3 million. Looks like he's in line to start. So really cheap way into Liverpool defence. I just don't think you're going to get much more other than clean sheets from him. You could also risk a transfer out if you think Kanate could come back in. But everything around Quansah has been pretty positive pre-season. Man City, Haaland, another captain pick, and another one that's got us questioning, is he value for money? Is he value for money? I don't think so. 8.5. But does he guarantee you goals? Yes. And is he a viable captain pick most weeks? Yes, as well. And I think that game week 2 Ipswich, that's one that I'm looking at thinking that could be sort of hat-trick territory, that one. So I am going to be having Haaland in my team. Good luck to you if you're not. I think it could be a scary affair. You could look to bring him in game week 2 after the Chelsea match, but I don't know. I think I'd rather just have him in there for the long run. 9-point average, 38 goals last season, 9 assists, and he averages an attacking return every match. So 47 attacking returns from 43 matches. 5 goals in pre-season, including a hat-trick against Chelsea, which people think is going to be a tough fixture for him. I just think I would easily captain Haaland for Chelsea as well. I just think Salah might be a little bit better as a captain pick for that first week, but I won't be going without either of them. Vardiol, 4.5 million. I'm liking the look of him. So got a little bit worried at the start of pre-season because he was playing at centre-half, but for the Community Shield, they've got Kanji and Diaz back, and Vardiol was back on that sort of left-back position. Peaked really well at the end of the last season. 5 goals, 3 assists. And then was just getting into the box so many times and getting those attacking returns. He gets bonus as well, 27 bonus. And averages 5.1 ppm player performance marks a game. So roughly going to be getting you a bonus point a match. So I really like the look of him. If I wasn't going for Trent Alexander-Arnold, I think that he's a decent option for getting attacking returns too. Doku. Now, Doku is a great player on Dream Team on his day, but there's always that shadow of will he be rotated out? But it looks like Grealish has a knock, so he was missing from the Community Shield, so that will boost his chances of playing. I had put Oscar Bob in this list for people to target, but there's been some sort of story coming out that it looks like Oscar Bob has just got injured, so that probably boosts, I know it's a different side of the pitch, but that probably boosts Doku's chances again with one less winger in the squad. So 4 million, I think, is a decent price for Doku, especially while they've got a few players out. 57 bonus points was the fourth most of anyone in the game. So I think that he could be a good option to start the season. But other than that, I was gonna put Oscar Bob on the list, but ignore that one for now because it doesn't seem like he's going to be playing anytime soon. Two players that I'm willing to ignore early on, but I'm conscious that I will want them, is KDB and is Foden. KDB only played a minute in that match against United in the Community Shield, and then Foden didn't make the bench. So I think I'm going to just wait till game week 2, game week 3, till we get a bit more idea of whether they're ready or not to start, and then look to move them in after that. My team, Arsenal, Bukayo Saka, 6 million. Fourth highest points in the game last season with a 7.9 average. Featured in the last couple of friendlies, so seems like he's going to be fine to start the season. 20 goals, 16 assists, gets bonus points, 52, and then a 6 average PPM, which he tends to get at least one bonus point a game. So I think he's a decent pick to start the season. That Wolves fixture at home looks good. Aston Villa, I'm still not that sure, but then I think Brighton at home is going to be okay as well. Takes pens, takes corners. I wouldn't go there this early in the season, but he could also be a differential captain. It just feels a little bit risky. I think Salah, Haaland, both better options. I think Isak is probably a better option as well. And he is still just coming back. Although he has started the last couple, I wouldn't be surprised if I see him go off in like the 70th or 80th minute. So possible, but I wouldn't do it. If I went without Saka, I probably would consider Ødegaard at 5 million just because the fixture does look quite nice game week 1. I don't think he's going to hit anywhere near the points of Saka. 11 goals, 13 assists. But I can see him getting returns in maybe 2 of the opening 3 fixtures. But I just look at that £5 million price point and think Isak looks better. Kudus looks better. Bowen, same price point, but plays up front. And then Son as well, same price point. I think a lot of those are better and have higher average points per game. So it's probably a bit harder to decide on that 5 million price point. Arsenal's defence. Now, if you take price out of the equation, I think a lot of people would be on the Arsenal defence. But because they did so well last season, they've been priced really highly. And it makes it quite difficult to fit them in. I'm not keen on these Arsenal defenders at 5 million because for an extra 0.5, you've got Trent who can get you not only the clean sheets, but the attacking returns. You could also drop down to Aporo, who's £1 million cheaper, who gets attacking returns as well. Not as sturdy at the back, but 5 million just seems a lot. And I can see if Arsenal end up conceding, these guys are going to drop quite quickly, I think. So highest clean sheet odds for the first game week. So you could still do all right out of it, but just in terms of value for money, when we're trying to put a 50 mil team together, I don't really like it. But 22 clean sheets last season did account for the bulk of the points. And there's me saying that Arsenal defenders don't get as many attacking returns. But in the last friendly, Gabriel and Saliba both on the score sheet. If I was going to go for one, it would be Ben White. Got 10 attacking returns last season. You could go for a cheeky Zinchenko punt at 3.5, but it would be short term, I think. It's just a matter of time, I think, until Calafiori comes into the mix. And also Timber was back in full training today as well. So it feels like it could be a risky one, but it might get the one clean sheet or potentially 2 if you do want to punt it for a couple of weeks. Spurs, obviously, got a new signing in Solanke. How do we think it affects some of these players? So Son, 5 mil. I think it's actually just going to benefit him. I know he's not going to be playing striker. He's going to be playing on the left. But he has got someone now that he can rely on to put the ball in the back of the net. Nice opening 2 fixtures. Leicester, Everton. Probably doesn't get that much better than that. We think he's still on pens, but I think we'll have to wait for confirmation to see him and Solanke both on the pitch together. 7-point average, 3rd highest average of all the strikers. 17 goals, 10 assists from 36 matches. So we know Son is a reliable point scorer in this game. He also will benefit from having European football later in the season. So if you do start the season with him, you're probably going to keep him up until they start playing in European Game Week 5 as well. Porro, I really like Porro. He's not currently in my team, but I am considering trying to fit him in at 4 million. 2nd highest average points out of the defenders, behind Trent Alexander-Arnold, 5.8 points per game. Hit 30 bonus points as well. There was a point in the season where he was maxing out bonus on a regular basis, but it did coincide with a Maddison injury. It seemed like when Maddison doesn't play, Porro does a little bit better for bonus because of the free kicks and the corners. I think it did end up with Porro taking corners because he did so well with them, but he probably will share some of them with Maddison. 4 goals though, 8 assists, really good return for defenders. Most attacking returns out of all of the defenders. Just clean sheets are the only problem for Spurs. Ange doesn't seem that bothered about keeping them, but do the attacking returns outweigh the clean sheets? Solanke, 4 million. I'm not that bothered. I know people are really liking the look of Solanke. I'm quite happy with my front 3. It doesn't quite feel worth a game week 1 punt for me, but it does seem like there's a lot of positive talk that he would be ready for the first game week of the season. So let me know if you're including Solanke in your side. I don't really want to risk it. That risk also knocks on to Johnson and Kulusevski at 3 million. 2 of the players that I was considering for my team for game week 1, but with that Solanke sign-in, we had Kulusevski starting false 9 and Johnson starting on the right, but now Solanke's going to take that striker spot, so they're going to be fighting for one spot, I imagine, which puts me off completely. The stats are on the screen there. Decent attacking returns, decent average points, but feels a little bit of a minutes risk. And then Maddison, in my initial team draft, which I shared with you, he was in there at 4 million. Really good for bonus. 6-point average for a 4 million player is really, really good. 15 attacking returns from 30 matches. So every other game he's getting an attacking return. Huge 43 bonus. But apparently in preseason, he hasn't looked good. Every time I look online, Spurs fans are slating him. They've got a new player called Bergvall who seems to be doing quite well. People are calling for him to start. And even in preseason, he seems to be getting taken off early on a regular basis. So I think I'm probably going to pass on Maddison. But if I do see signs that he is going to get these bonus points again and play a decent amount of minutes, I probably would consider getting him back in, especially with Europe coming up. Chelsea, Cole Palmer, 6 million. What a season. So he started at 2 million last season and then ended up being the 3rd highest scoring player in the game. I really doubt we're going to see anything like that this season. 25 goals, 18 assists on penalties, and a massive 8-point average. But he is now priced at 6 million instead of 2 million. 33 bonus points as well for him. Really was the main man. Didn't start in pre-season, but he did get 45 minutes in that last match. I think that he probably will start the season because he didn't play a ton of minutes in the Euros. Obviously, you're training the whole way through that, but I don't know. I think they'll start with him. He's the main man there. I don't think I can justify starting him for that first match against Man City when you've got Saka playing against Wolves on the first game of the season. I think that looks a better fixture, but after Man City, Wolves, Palace, Bournemouth, West Ham, Brighton, they all look like really nice fixtures. So I do think it will only be a matter of time before he is in my team. Let me know if you're thinking of starting with him. Nkunku, 4 million. He's down as a striker. Same price as Solanke. 3 goals, 1 assist in pre-season and had really good minutes as well. He didn't play that last friendly, but maybe it's a case of just keeping him fresh for the start of the season. I think he could have a good season if he stays fit. But again, not willing to start with him for game week 1. I've been pretty nailed on my front three for most of pre-season, and I don't see this guy sneaking in there. I think with this Chelsea team, especially while they're still signing so many players as well, I think we just wait and see what happens for Man City and then make a decision after that. Aston Villa, Ollie Watkins, 6 million. Now, I thought I probably would be starting with Ollie Watkins to start the season after last season, but I don't know. The fixtures aren't great. West Ham away in the first fixture, then Arsenal at home. But after that, 3, 4, 5, 6 all look good. Leicester, Everton. They then start Champions League. They've got Wolves, Ipswich, and then another Champions League match. By that point, I think I'm definitely going to want Ollie Watkins in my side. But I'm just not that interested in starting with him. He had a 6-point average, but he did third highest scoring striker in the game as well. 24 goals, 18 assists. So was that 42 attacking returns in 51 matches. No minutes in pre-season, but surely he does start. Again, another one that didn't play a ton of minutes in the Euros. I think he will start this first fixture. They had Morgan Rogers starting as the striker in the last game, but I imagine he's going to have to move aside for the main man, Ollie Watkins. Talking of main man, we've had Douglas Luiz leave, so there is also a chance that Watkins could get penalties. If he has a season like last season and penalties added on, it could be some massive scores from him. But yeah, I think there's just probably a little bit safer to get on him, maybe around game week 3. Morgan Rogers has been the enabler that's probably getting the most attention, maybe alongside Smith Rowe at 2.5. Starting both as a striker and on the left wing in pre-season. He had 3 goals, 2 assists in pre-season. A bargain price, really, if he is a regular starter. I'm just not 100% that he does start. Obviously, Watkins still to come in. And then you've got Bailey as well. So they mix it up. Sometimes they play with 2 up top or second striker, and then they sometimes line up with a 3 up top. If it's the 3 up top, then I think Morgan Rogers does start on the left-hand side. But if it's the 2, I'm not completely convinced. But Villa fans that I speak to do seem pretty set on that he's going to start. You've got Martinez, 3.5 million. If I was choosing a set and forget keeper for European football at the start, it would be him. Comes in quite a bit cheaper than some of the other Champions League goalkeepers, and he doesn't rotate either. Played 46 matches last season, but 3.6 average points. You compare that to midfielders, for example, at the 3.5 price point, that is significantly lower. So I just think that the goalkeeper's points are quite a bit lower than the same value out on the pitch. There are bonus points coming into play this season, so we'll see how that affects things. But at the moment, I don't think I'm willing to put that much money into my goalkeeper. You've got Konsa, 4 million, most bonus points of all the defenders last season. Just the 1 goal, 1 assist. 14th best for overall points, though. It feels a little bit of a case of he got decent points because he played so many matches with those 49 matches. But at 4 million, I don't think he's value as well, to be honest with you. Obviously, you can keep him, and he's a European player, but I'm not that keen on the Aston Villa defence. I'm looking at game week 3 as being that turning point. Man United, so Bruno Fernandes is probably the only one that I feel like I'm going to get a bit of FOMO from if I don't start with him. 6th highest overall in the game last season, 6.8 average, 15 goals, 14 assists from 48 matches. He's the main man on penalties, all set pieces. I don't know. What do you think of him sort of playing this false 9 position? Because they've got a lot of injuries. He started false 9 in the Community Shield. Scored a really good goal that was narrowly disallowed, and then got the assist. I think he will be a good point scorer. Just while they've got injuries and we're not exactly sure on what his position will be, I think I'll be willing to avoid it to start off with. But like I said, I can see him being one that I get FOMO from. Dalot, 4 million. Played 50 matches last season. Usually always available. They have got a couple new signings coming into the defence, so maybe it's a case of waiting and see how they line up the defence. But I think it will improve the defence, and it could be better for clean sheets. I think they were one of the worst teams for shots conceded last season, so hopefully that will change. But 9 attacking returns for Dalot. and just over 2 tackles per game as well. So he's got multiple ways of scoring. And then lastly, Garnacho, 4 million. I feel like it's just maybe 0.5 more than I would be willing to pay for him. 21 attacking returns, though, 10 goals, 11 assists. Didn't start the Community Shield, but he came on in the 59th and then went on to score as well. So could be a good option at 4 million, 4.7 average, but that average is matched by quite a few £3.5 million players. Right, onto some sides that don't have Europe, but do have Carabao Cup. Newcastle first. I think they've got the best fixtures, possibly out of everyone, maybe just behind Liverpool, but definitely out of the non-European sides. And we're going to start with Isak at 5 million. I don't want to go without Isak for this opening fixture against Southampton. I also think that Bournemouth away looks good. And then Tottenham at home in game week 3. Tottenham played that high line. I can see Isak getting in behind there. I quite like the look of having him for these opening 3 game weeks. Currently, the 3rd highest owned player in the game at 34%. Compare that to a Salah at 25%. Obviously, a lot of it is due to the price difference. But 3 goals, 1 assist in pre-season. Looking good. Could be a strong captain option as well. I think definitely Salah, Isak, Haaland be the most popular 3 captains. He's got penalties, 25 goals, 5 assists last season from 40 games. And a 6.7 average, which is pretty decent as well. Can't give you any reasons not to start with Alexander Isak, I think. Does look a really, really good option. Gordon at 4.5. There's probably a decision to make between these 2 midfielders. I think they're both really good, both at the same price point. Gordon at 4.5 and Bruno Guimaraes. Gordon, there were question marks on whether he'll be ready to start, but he started the last friendly. They actually played 2 friendlies in a short space of time. The top one on the screen probably looks like it had the most likely starters, but you did have Bruno Guimaraes play in the 2nd friendly, and a few of the good defenders as well also started in that one. I imagine Bruno G is obviously going to start as well. Gordon scored in that friendly. Another one that's got many routes to points, 30 bonus, 29 attacking returns from 48 games. 1.5 tackles per game. He hit tackles quite regularly. And then he averaged a shot or big chance created per game. So every match, he was pretty much getting an extra point for a shot on target or a big chance created. 5.8 average, I think, is pretty good for 4.5 million. Bruno G, same price as Gordon, less attacking returns, but much, much better for bonus points. But you have to weigh it up because goals have gone up a point and assists have gone up a point. So maybe Gordon is the better shout. But Bruno Guimaraes, 83 bonus points from 50 matches is the most of any player. So he is the best player for bonus on the game. And he gets over 2 tackles a match. So he's always getting bonus. He's always getting tackles. And then 7 goals, 11 assists. It's not like he struggled for attacking returns either. I've seen a lot of people interested in Jacob Murphy as a short-term 2.5 punt. And I don't mind it, actually. He looks like he's set to start at right wing. The only thing I would say is I can't help but look at Harvey Barnes as needing to be a starter at some point. I feel like Barnes and Gordon would be 2 really good wingers. It probably would mean Gordon going out to the right, which is not ideal. But yeah, I feel like Barnes will be knocking on the door to start anytime soon. But Jacob Murphy, 5 goals, 3 assists in pre-season. He's definitely done enough to keep his place. I just think it could be a minute's risk or a possible booking in a transfer later on. In defence, they've got a bit of movement at the back. So fullbacks look like they're going to be different to the start or to the last season. They've got Hall and Livramento both at 3 million. If you'd seen my previous first draft team reveal, I had Livramento in there at 3 million. I'm looking at switching that to Hall now because it sounded like Trippier was going to leave, but he's still hanging around and did get minutes in that friendly. Started for that sort of B team. So if he does end up staying, I think he probably does end up starting eventually, which is pushing me to Hall a little bit. It looked like Fabian Schär got an injury. So that means Byrne is probably going to play at centre-back, which leaves that left-back position open for Hall. So I don't think there was much in it for points. They're both relatively attacking, but I just think that Hall might be a little bit more secure at the moment. So Trippier not leaving probably brings a little bit of doubt for Livramento in my eyes. Crystal Palace, Eze, 4.5 has been in my team since the start. Little bit worried about Man City sniffing around potentially. Might even hot up now that Oscar Bob is injured. But he got 48 bonus points from 31 matches last year. Hit bonus regularly in games where Crystal Palace didn't even play that well. I was at the game where Arsenal won 5-0 against Palace, and Eze got max bonus in that one. He was everywhere. Everything Palace did was going through him, and it will probably be more like that now they don't have Elise either. 11 goals, 7 assists, averages 1.5 shots or big chances created per game. So he's always getting that extra point. He's always getting bonus. And then he's going to have all set pieces and penalties as well now. So I think that this looks like it will be a good move, as long as he doesn't go to City. None of us want him to go to City, surely. Munoz, 3 million. Done really well, but only signed in January. So we've got a bit of a smaller sample size, but 5-point average out of the defenders is brilliant for a £3 million player. Might go down a little bit once he plays a few more games. But 4 assists, playing in a very advanced sort of wing-back position. I think he will do quite well. You've got Kamada at 2 million. Potential budget enabler. I'm not massively keen on doing the double up of having Eze and him. But I don't think you're going to find better around the sort of 2 million price point. Played on Glasner before. Got 9 goals, 6 assists in his last season at Frankfurt. He just wasn't as productive at Lazio, who were his previous side. We've got Henderson at 2.5 million. I think he's my favourite 2.5 goalkeeper option, especially with Johnston leaving. Means he's going to be the number 1, and it probably means that he's got more chance of playing in that double game week as well, because if they don't sort out a number 2 in time, Henderson could very well play both fixtures, unless they throw in a younger keeper or there's another backup that I don't know about. Forest. Now, this is a tough one because I think their fixture run is really nice, but their previous results last season weren't as nice at all. So you're sort of banking that they're going to have an uptick in form. Gibbs White at 3.5 is the talisman of the team. He got 39 bonus from 42 matches last season. 18 attacking returns is decent. 6 goals, 12 assists. And I'm expecting him to be on penalties still. There's just a bit of uncertainty on whether he still has set pieces. So they've got Anderson, who they've signed, who was taking some in this last preseason match. You've also had Alanga taking some corners in pre-season as well. So there is a bit of uncertainty. And if he doesn't take as many set pieces, it could affect his bonus points. That's one little thing that I'm a little bit worried about. Alanga and Hudson-Odoi, both really quite comparable for goals and assists, average points. Hudson-Odoi gets more bonus than Alanga, but it's too tough to split, in my opinion, out of the two. The only thing that worries me about them is that they played a slightly different formation or lineup in the last friendly, and both were rested. Actually, I think they both will start, but it's just put a little bit of doubt in my mind about those 2.5 options. But if we know which one starts, there will be pretty good options for the price, I think. We've got Aina or Williams at 2 million. I think if you don't go for Sells in goal, either of them could be a decent option. I do think Bournemouth at home without Solanke could be clean sheet potential. You've got Southampton away. Again, I think that could be okay. Carabao Cup, we don't know the opponent yet. And then Wolves. I think those first 3 do look nice. But then it's Liverpool in game week 4, so not so good. For that reason, I think Sells is a decent option as well at 2 million. I think I've settled on him as my goalkeeper. There was sort of talk of Sells versus Miguel, but it looks like Sells has made that number 1 spot his. Elliot Anderson at 2 million is interesting. Like I said, he was taking some set pieces in that last preseason matches, and good set pieces as well. But I'm just not 100% that he starts yet. But if he does, 2 million, that could be a good one as well. Fulham are attracting a lot of attention going into the season. Man United first is not great, but I do think you have a bonus that you do get to guarantee that your player starts, especially handy for Pereira and Smith Rowe, because we want to know how they sort of affect each other. Robinson is someone that I'm really hot on. So 41 bonus points from 41 matches. Really, really good for bonus. 7 assists, which is decent as well. Puts in a really good cross. 111 tackles is huge as well. So multiple routes to points. Just hoping that they can get some clean sheets in there as well. So Man United away, not good. Leicester home looks okay. Carabao, we don't know yet. Ipswich away, West Ham at home. I think that looks a decent run. They then have Newcastle and Forest. So over the first 6 game weeks, I think that's pretty good for Fulham. Muniz up front, 10 goals, 2 assists last season. He's taken the number 9 shirt. Had a run of games last season where he scored 8 and 8. So could be a good differential striker. I think he comes in at 3 million. Muniz. Yeah, so real bargain price compared to the likes of Solanke or your Sons at 5. But there are, I think, more reliable strikers out there if you are sort of treasuring those striker spots. ESR versus Pereira, 2.5 million is going to be a tough one to decide on. So initially, I was preferring Pereira. He was in a few of my drafts, taking the bulk of set pieces, potentially on pens, but I think we need confirmation. I think it's been a little while since we've had confirmation on the penalty taker. Willian took a few last season, but it doesn't look like he's going to be playing for him now. So I think we're just waiting to see who takes that first penalty. I think there is a danger that if they do start, that Pereira is going to be the one that drops deeper and Smith Rowe plays a lot higher. I think that suits them more. But Pereira should still take set pieces. But Smith Rowe got 2 goals in pre-season in 2 games, just the 1 start, but then scored in 7 minutes coming off the bench. There was just a quote today, though, that I'm going to bring up from the Fulham manager. So he said on Smith Rowe, he hasn't played games consistently, so it's going to be a process for him to be in his best condition, but we have already seen that he can make an impact. He can make a difference. 2 goals in 2 games is a good start. So he's already sort of acknowledging that, like we did in previous episodes, that you do have to be careful with him. And that sort of puts a bit of doubt in my mind that maybe if he does start, he gets 60 minutes, 70 minutes. If he plays in game week 2 and starts against Leicester, probably doesn't play Carabao. I know there's a lot of rotation anyway, but you'd be mad to put Smith Rowe in for 2 in 2, sort of 2 in 1 week. So there is that. But again, it's a £2.5 million slot. So what are you expecting, really? It's a tough call. Leno, 3 million. I don't mind that either. I won't be going for it because I think if you're comparing Leno to Robinson, I think Robinson just has a much higher ceiling. But if you're not going for Robinson, I don't mind it as a sort of set and forget keeper. 4th most saves. And like I said, there could be quite a few clean sheets in that run. So I don't hate it, but I do probably prefer going for the cheaper keepers. Then West Ham, 5 million Kudus, bonus monster, 70 bonus from 45 matches. They've priced him up this season, 22 attacking returns and almost 100 tackles as well. He's not just doing the attacking, he's getting tackle points. I am very interested, but their run is tough. Villa at home, Crystal Palace away, Man City at home in the first 3 looks pretty tough. Does get a little bit better with Fulham, Chelsea and Brentford, but yeah, I think the fixture run is tough, but I do think that with these new signings, West Ham could be a decent side. And I think Kudus is one of these players that will still get you points in the tougher games. So I am interested. I don't think I'm going to start with him. Bowen, unfortunately, down as a striker. I think if you are comparing the 2 5 million players, I do prefer Kudus anyway. I made that choice and went for Kudus last season and it went well for me. But he is taking corners when Ward-Prowse isn't on the pitch, like in the last friendly. Does get attacking returns, 31 in 44 matches. Reliable goal scorer. I just can't see myself buying him as a striker. I think there are such good striking options this season on Dream Team. So 5 million is an option, but can't see myself doing it. Areola at 2.5 is someone that I would consider if I was going a little bit higher price point. Had the best average points per million out of the keepers and the 3rd most saves. Strong second choice in Fabianski means he probably don't play Carabao. That's the only thing. And then new additions in the defence probably could improve them as well. So maybe a little bit more likelihood of clean sheets. But Villa, Crystal Palace, Man City, I don't really see clean sheets in those first few. On to Brighton. I'm really disappointed in the way the fixtures have fallen for them because they've got a lot of options that I like. But I think I'm put off by the fixtures. Everton away, Man United home, Arsenal away in the first three look really, really tough. But it gets nicer game week 4 with Ipswich. But that's when we start to have the Champions League start. Game week 5, Forest, and then game week 6, Chelsea. So I think just the schedule just hasn't fallen very nicely for their players. But João Pedro, 3.5, was really good from bonus last season. He's the penalty taker. And I think the only hindrance to Pedro last season was De Zerbi subbing him off so much. He did play in 40 matches, but I just remember there was so much rotation, playing in different positions, early subs, switching with Ferguson, Welbeck. I just think that's how I remember last season for him. But he did do really, really well for the price. So if he gets a run at starting, I think 3.5 will make a mockery of that price. You've got Minte at 3 million, who looks really exciting as well. But he is one of these ones where you're going off a different league performance, going off the YouTube compilations as well. So I'm not sure how that transfers, but 10 goals, 5 assists from 17 starts last season. So almost an attack and return every match. 3 goals, 2 assists in pre-season. So the signs are good there as well, but it is pre-season. Averaging 2.8 tackles would get him an extra point. 3.6 successful dribbles per 90 is setting him up quite nicely for bonus points. And like I said, he's nearly getting a goal a game or an attack and return a game as well. So he could be someone that's really exciting to watch. Not sure I've got the balls to put him in early doors though. Barco, 2 million. Nice budget enabler plan left back, but we have had talk that Kadioglu, the left back from Turkey, could be joining. So if you do go for him, you might be able to get a little bit of an increase out of him if he does well, and then maybe move him on. You probably are booking in a transfer potentially. But then if you do want to go for it, game week sort of 4, fixtures look pretty good then. And then Everton. I don't know why. I just quite like the look of Everton this season. I'm a big fan of Dyche. I think he does a good job. I think they've got a lot of players that do a decent job, sometimes score decent points on Dream Team, just not that fashionable. And Dwight McNeil is one of the ones that I like the look of. So averaged 4.9 points per game, which is on the higher side for a £3 million price tag. He's completely nailed. He takes all corners and free kicks. Well, actually, sometimes shares them with Garner, but Garner's out injured. So I'm expecting maybe he takes more of the free kicks and corners, unless they specifically want an in-swinger on the other side, because they're both different footed. But I think he will take the bulk of them. 41 bonus points from 41 games, reliable bonus points, 12 attacking returns. It's not amazing, but it's okay for 3 million, 3 goals, 9 assists. Got an assist in that last friendly against or with Calvert-Lewin up top, and putting crosses and corners in for a player as big as Calvert-Lewin, even if he doesn't score, it goes down as a successful cross if he gets on the end of it, and that goes towards his bonus points. So I'm liking McNeil, even though I know it isn't the most attractive pick. Mikalenko, 3 million. Everton had the second most clean sheets in the Premier League last season. They were the 6th best defence for XG conceded, and they were particularly good defending at home. So I do see them keeping clean sheets in this run. They've got Brighton first, Tottenham away, Carabao Cup, which they did rotate quite a bit in the Carabao Cup last time, but there were a few players that started the Premier League matches and then carried it on, including Pickford, for example. And he had averaged 4.9 as well, Mikalenko. Same as McNeil at that price point. Both look like they could be a little bit underpriced. So I think either of them could be decent options. They're just not that glamorous. Pickford as well in goal. 3.5 million. Again, this same thing seems to happen though. So as you can see, 3.5 million, but he got a 3.2 average, where you've got Mikalenko and McNeil at 3 million, getting sort of almost 5 average. So it seems to happen that the outfield players for the same price or less are outscoring the goalkeepers. That is why a lot of us are choosing to go for the cheaper ones. Did have a 4.2 average, and he, like I said, he did play Carabao Cup last season with the same backup goalkeeper. So maybe if you do get 2 games out of him in game week 2, could be worthwhile. But yeah, it's not enough to convince me to go with him as a keeper. I think your money could be better spent out on the pitch. That is everything for this episode. So thank you very much for watching. Please do leave us a like, subscribe to the channel to get kept up to date with all the latest content that I'm putting out. I will be doing a team reveal before the deadline. And do also check out the Dream Team Tonic podcast. We've done weekly podcasts throughout pre-season, and then we've also had a few team reveal podcasts with experienced Dream Team managers. So do check that one out on the Dream Team Tonic podcast. And we've also got a Discord, Patreon community with over 100 now Dream Team managers all chatting on a daily basis, sharing ideas. We've got exclusive articles, early access to the podcast as well. So do check that one out. Link in the description below. And lastly, Dream Team Community League. Just a bit of fun, all for free. Link in the description below if you want to join my community league before the start of the season. That is it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.